So there could be artists, there could be light designers. So uh, I feel interior design is more of a film director.
Yeah.
So once you understand the story idea, you make the script, and then you have many people on board who can help you ideate as well as take the expert guide and give the job to the experts.
And get the drama like enacted. Yeah. Hello, I am Nitish Tyagi. Welcome to this special edition of Abir Samvad at Jaquar Orientation Center happening in Guwahati. This session is special because we are doing it offline for the first time. So far, we have been doing online interviews. This session is also special because we are talking to a young and dynamic interior designer from Guwahati, Ashish Agarwal, and he has been practicing for 17 years. Uh, he started as a commerce student, then moved into design, which was his core kind of a calling. Start with your, how did your journey like started and how did you get here?
Well, my journey started at the age of 7 itself. I had this creative bent of mind. What my mother says that, Ashish, you made a model of a battlefield. Although I was pursuing commerce as a career and I was studying here in Guwahati. So as he said that there was a calling for creative work. So I just went to Delhi and took up design as a course. And then my soul is creative, I would say. So if I have not been in interior design, I would have been doing some other creative work. So when I was studying, I could make perspective without any formal education. I was doing sections without any formal teaching. So it came automatically to me. And since then till today, I've been doing designing with my hand. I mean, I do sketches. I don't use computers so much. I do editing and some kind of the reviews and everything I do over computer. But then the core design comes on paper with my pencils. So interior designing is something which I love a lot, especially because it touches the emotions of the people, the occupants. So every element of design speaks a different language, and it touches different emotions of the occupants or the person we are designing for. So interior designing for me is like religion. It's like preaching. It gives peace to my soul. Although it's a very subjective matter where what is nice, what is not nice, it's very subjective from person to person. So interior designing is something it's going to go a long way. It's going to transform things. It's the more I speak, it's even lesser.
So, but take us through this, whatever the big milestones, I mean, starting from now to then, which you think are the kind of the big ticket things you did in these 17 years.
All right, so there was quite a twist and turn to my career. Coming from a commerce background and then just suddenly switched on to design. Although I did not realize that I was a gold medalist in Delhi. But soon I realized that I didn't have a direction of what kind of design I'm going to do. I had an elaborate experience with architects from SEPT and Tulsi Vidya Bharati. And it happened that I was doing commercial designing in terms of, I would say, industrial designing. And later when I came back to Guwahati to serve my city, I realized that there's no opportunity to design those industrial products or point of purchase retails. And then I got a break through one of my friends that, Ashish, why don't you try and do my house? Then I realized it's again a very interesting area where I can really do something, creative. At the same time, I can make it very functional and appealing and feed my soul as well. And from there onwards, I was getting projects one after another. I did not realize 5-7 years flew away, and then I was doing top of the line projects in Guwahati. So I enjoyed thoroughly what I was doing at that point of time. Then the journey took a different direction. I started trying my skills in other areas. I got opportunities. One memory I have from the past is that Guwahati was not ready for retail designing at that point of time. So there were a couple of companies who wanted to bring, like Baskin Robbins, one project I remember that this company was struggling to have a store in Guwahati, and then there was no one who can understand this design language and get it executed. So I came with the picture, and I was very, um, I had a very great experience on retail designing. So we just pulled it off in a couple of months, and it was doing really good, and it has international appeal. Guwahati was very, I would say, it was not ready for those kind of design at that point of time. It was a very new thing for a city like Guwahati. Eventually, we did quite a few of those basket urban outlets, and then retail stores started coming my way. I did um, Hero Hondas and other stuff. And recently, we did a liquor store, which is it's in this part of India. The liquor consumption really high, and those stores are very frequent. Every 50 meters, 100 meters, you will find a liquor store. But then the experience was not there. So one of my friend who was into liquor trade, he said with me, he said, Ashish, I don't have a budget, but I have an idea. But I said, well, no worries, I'm always there for an idea to share, and why not? So we started discussing on a project where we thought we'll make a liquor store where all people from different status and from HNI crowd also can come and have a good experience. So we did this store called the Whiskey Company just across the GS Road, in the same very road itself. And it got featured in Brew and Spirits, one of the Asia's leading magazine, and it has a lot of success stories along with it. Post that, we did another store. This was done a couple of years back, and this year itself we did another store. The size is around 8,000 square feet, and it is Eastern India's one of the biggest liquor store, I would say.
Ashish, tell us about how you process the design thing, how you visualize it, and how do you, from idea to outcome, how do you kind of work it through?
Well, whenever a client walks into our office and they want to understand, what kind of project we are going to do for them, so we have an approach of understanding clients' behavior and what they are passionate about. We try to understand the person in detail. So their life stories, maybe where they come from, where they want to go, and what inspires them. Where are their emotional areas? Are they a family-oriented person or someone who has really wanted to do a lot? So once you understand that person's personality in totality, also along with the family people who's going to stay with them, who are going to stay with them, then we come with a proposal. All right, so this is what we think about your house, and we do a discovery session over a lot of coffees. We take them through pictures. We talk about their small expectations from the house. Maybe they want to sit in the balcony and have a cup of coffee, or whether it's a reading person, or they want to chill more around the house, or they want to entertain guests. So everything, it's not about just jump into a conclusion and just do designing. After understanding all this, we try and sit with our design team. We debate. We throw questions to each other. We go through a lot of sketches, ideate. And at times, this client are not aware of what is cooking up inside the office. So we get a call maybe after a week or so, are you really doing my project or not? So then we said, have patience, we'll come up with some solution, don't worry. So far we've been doing this and been enjoying a lot, and it brings a lot of good results. It gives us very real and, original approach to, it's basically very, very subjective what the client want, and every individual is different. We try to bring that solution for that project.
So you also happen to be in a very interesting place that, like place like Guwahati will have some kind of, which I kind of see around in the city, that there's a very globalized kind of an aspiration, and then there's a very strong local regional aesthetic to this place. The whole Northeast actually has to my mind, has a huge strong design aesthetic. So tell us about how Guwahati is changing. So there is a kind of clear global aspiration to be, contemporary and new, and at the same time we want to keep the thing authentic and original and local, regional, cultural sensibilities in place.
Very well said, Nadesh. And I must say, you have a very quick observation in this. You just landed here today and you already observed that part. I must say, it is in the cusp of the growth, I would say. There is a rampant construction happening in this part of India, especially Guwahati. So Guwahati is not inspired by Eastern or a very specific area. It has been inspired by entire India, I would say. Of late, I have realized that in last 10 years, The young generation have studied outside, not even India. They have studied Europe, US, everywhere, and this influence from everywhere. If you go and see skyline of Guwahati, you will see there's a lot of modern architecture which is happening, and there is a lot of bungalows with inclined roofs, which also give you glimpses of Assamese architecture. So of course there is no one direction which is taking place. It is rampant. It is a kind of chaos at the same time, but eventually it's going to be settled down to a one design language, which is what we all want to. But it's good that Guwahati is doing really good in terms of material, in terms of collaborations, and even if you travel down 100 kilometer away from Guwahati, you'll see there's this urban architecture which is coming up. People are ready to keep those aesthetics from art, culture, heritage, everything, and the architecture is not absolutely urban or modern. So there is a kind of balance which is being seen outside Guwahati or maybe outside the urban conditions.
And how does this whole thing change? I mean, how do you see, as you know, so when I was yesterday, I was looking at Paltan Bazaar, and then this road where we are situated at GS Road.
Guwahati Shillong, yeah.
So, there are multiple timelines in the same city.
Absolutely.
So how would you see this transition? And
all right, so I'll take you back to the period where this Guwahati city started evolving. So Guwahati, Heart is a place where people used to trade in ancient times. So by the bank of this river Brahmaputra, people from different tribes used to come and trade.
Yeah.
So Paltan Bazaar, those fancy bazaar and MG Road is the area where the Guwahati started growing up.
Mm-hmm.
So you see the old city there till that point of time, and this part of Guwahati, GS Road, was a very suburb and remote at that point of time. Eventually, the city grows towards airport and your next state. So this is the state highway, and eventually this was ready to come up. Hence, the acquisition and skyscrapers started coming up. So you see modern architecture in this part of Guwahati, not in that part of Guwahati. Any city you have old and the new one. So this is what you see as the two timelines and two different languages.
So one question which I had was like about this whole, the local art and craft, and how do you integrate that into your work, design works, basically?
Yeah, my take on this is basically there's no proper justification which has been done to the local art and craft and the traditional methodology, primarily because in terms of architecture, the Assam architecture was very unique because of the climate condition. It was very humid and hot, and there's huge rain. It's high rainfall area.
Yeah.
And of course, it is seismic 5. So at that, anciently the architecture was very different here. Those columns were made out of tree trunks, and we used to have bamboo sheets, covered with muds, and thatch roofs. It could take a tremor of up to 6 to 7 at the Richter scale. So, but then at the same time, it was not very sustainable in terms of the longevity. It needs very frequent repairs. So the transition is modern technology, concrete, brick, cement. Those architecture started because it's viable, it's economical, it's more long. It has a bigger life. So in the whole transition, I feel we forgot the aesthetic or the charm of Indian Assam architecture. So hence it is broadly missing. If you travel across the major cities, all the buildings are modern, what you see in the rest of India. So I think we are responsible, as well as the government are responsible, not to keep the flavor alive.
So we were talking about how people are changing so fast, and then when you approach a project, so we were talking about the markets, and now let's move to the people. That how their design needs are so different from they were, say, one generation back, and how they are looking at the next generation. Yes. How the Indian house has changed in a way. Like when I kind of grew up in Chhattisgarh in government quarters, there were no bedrooms. They were like every room was a living room. So then the bedroom came, and then the attached bedroom came, and so this is how the houses evolved. So, and then now we can't probably think about a modern, even middle class kind of a house which will have that kind of a thing. So these changes are happening very fast. So how do designers keep, that in the mind in their own works? That how the Indian families, the middle class, and also the high-end people, so all of that is changing. So how does design people configure this change?
All right. Interesting question, Nadesh. I would say it is a demand and supply situation where we have to fit in. Be the occupants or the builders or the architects. The city which is developing fast, everybody try to throng in there and try to board that bus and speed up their lifestyle. Same is this condition of Guwahati city, I would say. Guwahati is the image of the entire northeast. Hence, I'm just mentioning Guwahati. Land is getting scarce, space is getting crunched, buildings are going taller. So eventually, what square feet we have to design is very compact. Of course, the needs are getting different. People have started adapting to the smaller spaces because they've been experiencing the scarce of land everywhere in India. So we have to deal with it with a different approach now. Of course, if you move away from the urban cities, then we have more palatial space. And then there are a lot of retreats and resorts which is coming around this country. You can always have that countryside architecture, expansion and experience, whatever. But Guwahati, so far we have to deal with those small areas. And of course, in terms of architecture, it is going to be difficult to adopt the flavors or the heritage or art bring into the buildings. Where in terms of interior designing, there might be some possibility which we can explore. Yeah.
So who are the interior designers you feel most inspired from? I mean, who are these 4 or 5 things you look at and in India and globally?
You mean say
the designers, basically. So I mean, who are the people where you draw your inspirations from?
Okay. Zubin and Krupa are the couples which I really follow them. They are based out of Mumbai, architect couple, and they do really good design. It's sensible design, I would say. There's nothing in context of heritage or ancient architecture, but then whatever they are doing with the urban condition, I get a lot of inspiration from them. And also my previous employers or my mentors, the words are still striking in my ears, and I remember all those things, and I just try and incorporate. At the same time, art also inspires a lot. So I've been to exhibitions. I've traveled to Europe. There has been there's a great experience and inspiration we've been getting from art museum architecture from Europe, and we try to blend them here somewhere or the other way in our design as well. And I get inspiration from music as well when I design. So A.R. Rahman is one of my biggest inspirations so far, and I don't know if I can put words to that. The kind of different music or the instrument he used to bring in together and create that unique music. When I'm stuck, I just remember him. I get a different code of thinking, and then I take this challenge, and then I'm always there to solve it. So one of the biggest inspiration is A.R. Rahman for me.
How do you experience art? Like, when you just say you're in a gallery and you're in Europe, so what is your process of experiencing art?
Well, art for me is of course it's a very different experience, and it's an expression of a person who does it. I try to understand it with what perspective the artist has done that art, and art could be in different forms as well. I feel anything which is kept aesthetically is also an art for me. If you keep this book like this, and I just put it like this, it becomes an art for me. So art has a lot to do with aesthetic as well. And there's color to it, there's a size to it. In interior designing, I take a lot of care that I have a very designated space for my art pieces. If that art is not installed, this design is not complete. So for me, art, of course, it is a very personal interpretation. But when I perceive my design in my mind, I always have art coming to my imagination. without which I can't do. So it could be oil, it could be canvas, it could be craft, it could be mural, or just bring few objects together, and it's art for me.
You visualize, when you design and you think art is an integral part of it, but how do you tell your clients that this is so pivotal or important for them to consider that having art in that place?
So this is the most pain area which you have touched, Nidesh, and I'm sure most of the designers across the world, I don't know about others, but especially in India, it is a very difficult situation where we have to convince our client that you need this out of this wall. So over a period of time, I've realized that this is one area which is going to be hampered. The entire project is not going to complete. So I try to understand the depth of it. How do we go about it? So few things which I've been doing is that right from the beginning we start establishing that importance of art to our client. We give examples like when you wear a suit and if you don't have accessories on it, your dress is not complete. So architecture is more about functionality, the purpose, and so many functions it has to perform. But the thought-provoking emotions cannot be done through architecture. So where does it come from? We try and give consultation to the people or to the client. We educate them towards the art. It is a good effort which is required from all the designers, and we feel that it's not our job, but that it's high time that we realize it is core part of designing. So I have changed my mindset. I made it a point that I am going to talk about art in every project I'm going to do, and also I work towards the kind of resources I need to bring those art come in place, so that they don't feel like aliens have to be, oh my god, I have to deal with art. Who is going to do it for me? Where is it going to come from? How it is going to be priced? So right from the budget to the aesthetic, we give a lot of importance to the art part of the project. So we ask them to keep a separate budget. We design our entire flow of architecture, the processes, and the last is finishing an art, furnishing an art. So they are mentally prepared it's going to come in the last, and we can't run away from it. So that is one approach we've been taking.
So tell us about the art, which which your art experience that you stood before it and then you thought, okay, this is something which kind of completely blew you.
Well, art is, anyways, is going to blow you. People who don't accept this line, I would say they are lying. It is going to provoke your thoughts. It is going to touch your emotions. It is going to give you a different way of look at things. Imagine a blank wall, it's a black wall, and just put a small piece of art. Your thoughts are going to multiply at that point of time. So how can someone ignore art? So it was one experience which I had when I traveled to Amsterdam. I was not aware of the city, what is going to offer me. I was not theoretically seeing art, or intentionally you can say. It happened that I visited the museum of Van Gogh, the famous legendary artist, and when I learned that the kind of painting he did. So any creative person has a very wild thought process which keeps on going in their mind. Any creative field for that matter. I had a certain kind of connection with this person. When I went to the museum and saw his art, there was a twisted and turmoil, two faces which was converted like that. I sat inside the museum for an hour and so, and just tried to understand what was the thinking process which was going behind this. And I was able to resonate with it at some point of time. The kind of work I want to do, the amount of work I want to do in such a small time, I had some connection. So that inspired me to a different zone, I would say. I was in a different zone, and that moment keeps inspiring me today as well. So I think Van Gogh was one guy he inspires me every day.
So as a practicing designer, if we can ask you that, so Abir Pothi has lots of followers of who are young artists, and they're just beginning their practices. Abir is kind of Abir India is also like a foundation which kind of grooms lots of young artists from hinterland largely. What do you tell the young artists and architects and designers about who are like now coming into the fold and talking about how do they take their work journeys from there?
I feel artists should travel a lot. For me, traveling was the biggest exposure which I got through, and traveling is something which will keep on inspiring you. Once, even if you travel once in a year or once in a 5 year, it is going to, you know, make you think over a period of time, and you interpret it every time differently. So for an artist, I would say travel, go to places, see different design languages in terms of architecture, handicraft, art, even performing art. So from the history, there's a lot of inspiration, and if you look at any art form, it keeps on evolving. If you try to understand the root, where it started and where is it coming, I think it's going to give a lot of different perspective about art. And art is also related to architecture, as we all know. Both have inspiration. Of course, the purposes are different, but then having dialogue with architects, because architects also talk about a lot of wild imagination. They have, because of the functionality and other constraints, they cannot express the way they think.
But they might be thinking 100 things, but they can do only one or two, or I mean, yeah, it's very limiting.
So I would say talk to architects, go to the forum, understand their imagination, pick up ideas from there and express through art. There could be a fatal blend of art, architecture, and it's going to, basically we are going to inspire each other. There have been the kind of interaction which should be there in India is not happening. I've been traveling to all the major cities, I've been seeing those. Mostly art is missing. One incident in Ahmedabad, I was there last year. There was a hardware merchant exhibition. Most of these merchants were just showcasing the hardwares, the furniture hardware, which Gujarat is, leading in terms of manufacturing. And this organization, they took an effort and brought those rural artists and gave them space to portray their art. It was more towards, uplift them to and bring them to the main platform. So that is a great move, a great gesture where people are already spreading their wings into different states and different areas and trying to bring those artists and give them mainline platform. I think those kind of activities required. I mean, people are already have a lot of approach, should encourage more artists to come forward, handhold them, and bring them more exposure. That is one thing I think is a great way ahead.
It's not actually related to interior kind of a person, but what do you think about the public spaces and the design, and especially in the way India is growing so fast? What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, it hurts actually. When you travel to other countries, even countries which are economically poorer than India, there is some sense of aesthetic or some sense of heritage or India or the art and architecture of that country speaks about itself. But unfortunately, that's very rare to see in India, except for places like Rajasthan, Gujarat maybe, and some part of UP maybe, where you actually see the heritage is replicated in public spaces. Or, for example, if you travel down to Jaipur, Pink City, even the parapet walls and the boundary walls of those places are done with arts which are absolutely Rajasthani. They have a context, and the moment you land, you start having that feeling. And it is very rare to see in any part of India, except for the Rajasthan. Unfortunately, there is a lot of construction happening. If I take example of Assam, that's just a small piece of advice or observation you can tell me. I can say that there are a lot of flyovers coming up, and these flyovers side walls are painted with very bright colors and these modern forms and shapes. If I would have been given a chance to come up with a concept of how do you paint these walls, I would definitely take up heritage of Assam or art and culture of Assam and portray that with vibrant colors instead of just doing those. It's looking good, but then these are the areas and the places. For example, a lot of railway stations are getting redesigned here, and unfortunately, it's all modern architecture. We could have brought the flavor of Assam. It could have been a great experience both for the visitors as well as for people who are residing here. But yes, maybe there's some limitations.
So we move from this market and the public spaces to the private spaces. So people are buying their house. More and more people are buying their own house. They're like and then it is also changing this whole equation between the functionality and the flaunt of having a house, because clearly most people uh, buy this, for them buying a house is like a singular most important thing in their lifetime. So how do you approach them as your design principle and there, so you kind of try to manage their ego as well as the functional needs as well as the transitions of it. And unlike in the West, we will buy one house and remain there mostly, and kind of we grow very attached to them, unlike what happens in the West, where people will keep moving with their age and family and that kind of stuff.
Interesting. So, this is a topic which I'd love to take a little deeper. So, where do you get the influence from? A person who is doing well and want to buy a house. So, what I've observed is buying a house and designing a house is very emotional in India. Like wedding and making home are the two emotional things, which is the biggest event in anybody's life. So we have to deal with that emotion first. We have to find out what exactly they are aspiring for. From a marketplace, public place to a private place, of course, it is very, very personal. An individual is different from another. I would say there's a huge role of internet which comes in place in this area. It has a curse, it has a blessing both. All these developing countries are hugely influenced from the Western countries, the West world. Their lifestyle, their climate conditions is very different from ours. And we want to live that minimal life. At the same time, we'll take those entire burden of our culture and the traditional way of cooking or wearing different attire at different occasions. Our weddings are elaborate, our cookings are elaborate. So how do you strike a balance between this traditional lifestyle as well as to adapt to the modern world? So that is where a role of an interior designer comes in first place. This is much before the designing starts. So we try and strike a balance, and we try to educate our client in terms of what you bring from this world and what you take from that world, and make a practical solution in between. For example, a kitchen, which is an integral part of any house and is the most active area of the house. And everybody knows how elaborate our cooking is. It runs whole day. The kind of smoke, grease we are able to create is huge versus what they do in the Western world. So we make them understand. We can't do with this kind of cooking. So what are the functionality required in on those designs which they do? So fortunately, the Indian market is also doing a lot in terms of bringing solution to handle all these kind of challenges. So I say we are glad that India and broadly Asia is doing a lot in terms of having high suction chimneys which can take care of the grease. You have great surfaces these days who can take care of your stains. Great hardwares are there. So there's a good balance and a blend where the solution is coming and it's taking place. And of course, people have started understanding that if you want to have a kitchen which is modern, then you have to behave accordingly. It is very important for the occupants to understand if you are going to have this type A, then you have to behave like type A. You just can't have your old style of cooking and behaving in a kitchen which is very modern in today's time. So of course it is awareness. We share videos, we share YouTube links to make them understand that this is a new place where you are going and you have to change also. It's not just that your house which is getting changed. So I think that helps a lot.
And kitchen, beyond kitchen then?
Beyond kitchen is, of course, there are many things which is making things easier. Like for example, if we adopt technologies, there's huge invention coming in terms of light inventions, home automation, and this one shift which I have seen over the last 20 years, that the family size is getting reduced, and more of nuclear families are living in India. And we have HNI clients, we have mediocre clients. For all of them, technology is playing a very pivotal role. So for example, if I have a small space, it can be multi-utilized, having very modern furniture and smart furniture. So of course, I must say the entire shift, when we design, we also take care of the technologies which can be adopted so that we can bring again both the world together and bring a very conducive solution. And the best part is it's getting cheaper and cheaper every day. So it is also affordable. So when you talk about drawing rooms, it is something which people want to flaunt, and some people do it for themselves. As I said, my earlier answer is that once you understand the personality of a person, what kind of zone he wants to be in, and what kind of things he want to show. So again, we try and make a balance between both, and technology plays a huge role there by making things. For example, if I want to make a art or anything related to sculpture, wherever whatever they want to show in terms of their favorites or their personality.
So yeah, people who are like young and emerging, and I mean people who want to aspire. I mean they might be like in commerce and they might be doing some kind of economics or some other not so visual kind of art subjects. And how do you kind of so, and you are one of those like doing commerce and data crunching probably, and then suddenly say no, I want to be the design person. So what do you tell them?
Okay.
And what do you tell the young emerging designers working on?
Well, design is very, everybody look design from a different perspective. One interior designer is different from another interior designer. But in general, what I've seen of late is that they are too driven with internet information. I must say they should follow their heart, what is calling, and believe in their hand sketches and what they can do through pencils, and follow that. Of course, it is a big challenge for the new generation that if they cannot express their ideas through some other media, it is very difficult. So I have seen very few that they conceive original ideas, they convert them into good 3D visuals to convince the clients. But 80% of this fraternity or the new generation is just taking references from different world and try to make a picture and then show it to the client. Of course, this makes their job pretty easy. But I must say, if you want to make some mark in your career or you want to create something really original, and follow your heart, follow your instinct, and great results are going to come up. So this is a big message to the new generation that they should try and follow their heart. Whatever they feel like designing, they should attempt. It might be a little struggling initially, but when projects when delivered properly, and it's going to take.
Yeah, I think so. One of the question is that do we keep the heart and your own core creativity in the center and use technology for supporting it, or sometimes I think the easier way for most people from using computers to ChatGPT to AI is like to bring that in the center, and then again, and because there are so many people here, there's always a market for that kind of stuff.
Yes. So I feel this pressure is too high, and you are not given the amount of time you need. This is the biggest challenge I feel this new generation is going through, because they have to deliver so much in such less time that it's not technically or practically possible to conceive so much of them and then give shape to it and then deliver it. The West world has taken the maximum advantage of buying time into it, because they work in a format, they work in a structured way. Where in India we take advantage of every situation. So of course we are all victimized, I must say. But then I feel that even if you make one piece of furniture, maybe a statement piece of furniture in whatever you have copied or inspired through, and just put it there, that is going to make a difference in your career. Even everybody's who is going to see that piece of furniture is going to get inspiration, and that is where the things can happen from.
What do you do to kind of keep this hard thing in center and in your own routines, and so
Yes.
how do you practice that?
So I do make sketches most of the time. Even I go through a lot of references. But at the end of the day, I just make sketches. So recently I did a little renovation in my house. I just did not open internet mostly, and I did not try to take references. So I just made sketches. Though it was difficult initially because you might have to take a couple of prototypes and then you fail and then you improvise, which is generally not your situation doesn't allow. We make protos, and especially when the site is executed at the place itself. So another thing which we are trying to do is that we are collaborating with furniture designers. So we take care of the site work at the local place, and someone else is designing your idea somewhere else. So that helps us to bring more of original work at site. So there could be artists, there could be light designers. So I feel interior designer is more of a film director.
Yeah.
So once you understand the story idea, you make the script, and then you have many people on board who can help you ideate as well as take the expert guide and give the job to the experts.
And get the drama like enacted. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Ashish. It was such a wonderful
Thank you
talking
so
to
much,
you.
Nilesh.
It's a very
Yeah.
helpful interview. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.